with Paul Daner, Mark Shalafoo, from listener questions to some running gags. Insider stories, ambush light, that dad life and respect for flags. Kick off the weekend, alright? It's the Growler Friday show, it's Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Dey Light. Paul Daner Jr., Mark Shalafoo here with you. Mark coming to us live from a Las Vegas hotel bathroom where if these walls could talk, right? The stories they would tell.
Yep, that's what everyone thinks of when they come to Las Vegas. What podcasts happened in this hotel room? That is the exciting part of it. But this is a nice little road podcast studio. I've got our little Growler t-shirt here from Cincy Shirts. Yep.
I like that.
Nice little background.
Yeah, you're looking good. You know, this is how courteous you are. You don't want to disturb the fine people of Las Vegas, of this hotel that you are in for your weekend at Skankfest, right? Skankfest going on this weekend.
Biggest comedy festival. Yep. And I mean, I am probably one of the least famous people here, since a lot of the comics here are like selling out theaters and arenas, and Nate Bargatze's doing SNL in a couple weeks. But first, Skankfest, so it's a lot of awesome comics. I'm excited for that. But yeah, I didn't want to give everyone a free preview of the show. They have to get it at the same time as everybody else when it gets published.
That's right.
What flag you flying back there?
Well, it's a big weekend for the flag. It is it's a birthday flag weekend. So my youngest daughter turns 5 on Sunday. So the birthday flag has officially been raised because the birthday weekend is upon us.
Wow, the birthday flag. How long does that just for the weekend? Just a couple days before and after?
It depends. I feel like it's once the celebrations sort of commence. Sometimes it feels like, like for me, I'm not one to put a birthday flag up for myself, so that's somebody else's decision. But like for the adults or a neighbor on the street, we'll put it up for a day. But for the kids, it gets an extended run. So you get the full weekend with a Sunday birthday, Friday where they come home from school today and the birthday flag is flying. It signals birthday weekend. It's on. Let's have some fun. So it's up. It's up. Here we go.
That's fine. 3 days. The problem is when she'll be in her 20s and she'll start doing, this is my birth month, and just flying that birthday flag all month and just trying to tell everybody everywhere she goes that she's the most important person because it's her birth month.
This isn't Nam. There are rules. Okay. You can't fly a flag for a month. Okay. But birth month gets referenced in this house. Birth week gets referenced in this house. However, the flag will be the ultimate holder of when we're allowed to officially really start celebrating. And that starts today. So happy birthday, Rosie. It's a fun weekend for her. Unfortunately, I will miss the actual birthday on Sunday, but we're having big celebrations today and tomorrow before I head out to Charlotte tomorrow night, because the Bengals have a crisis to go solve in Carolina. So off we go to see how that's gonna go. What a fun week! What a fun week it's been around the stadium. Let me tell you, just unicorns and rainbows and hugs.
It's usually not a good sign when the players start throwing out "stick with us" tweets. I saw that Jermaine Burton had one of like, "Hey guys, we need all of us locked in."
Yeah.
It's like not even the guy that doesn't even read his playbook is going to be the first one out there that's like, hey, come on, we can all do this if we stick together. The guy that can't get on the field, that's going to be the rallying guy.
Yeah. There was a lot of referencing the booing that was happening from players after the game. Not in a, you shouldn't have been booing us. In a, we deserve that, but noticing it. They're like, look, I've been around this franchise for some down times, and booing happens on opening day, usually in the first quarter, right? But like this, I think for this group, that was a little jarring for them to hear it, because they haven't really had to very much since this group has been together, and it was not good enough. And I think they all were very much noticing the crowd reaction, which doesn't always happen. A lot of times it just gets kind of thrown in the background of stadium noise, but that was not the case. They were very much talking about
it. Well, the vibes were all kind of the same. You know, we talked about it last week, 0-2 team. Everyone was still pretty optimistic, felt in a good place. The vibes at our Monday Night Football show, the live show, they were incredible.
Yeah.
You know, shout out Natasha B and Andy from the UK. We had people from Vancouver, Sacramento. I hung out with Jake and Sophia. They were Growl pals. I mean, it was a great time at that show, right? And then just a few hours later, even after the Jamar Chase touchdown, everybody was still super high. And then it's, you know, kind of fell apart from there. So I think, you know, the team might have been surprised by the booing, but I think the fans were just as surprised. Everybody expected things to turn around in that Monday night game. So they didn't.
Yeah. And there's still time for it to happen. I mean, it's getting very, very late, very, very early. By the time we do our next live show, which is 10/27 against Philly, so in a month, I mean, there's a chance the vibes could still be high at that down at BetMGM, Nation Kitchen Bar at the Banks. You know the place, you know the venue. It was a great time, and we'll be having even more fun again.
Still feel sort of optimistic for this team, and I know that might sound crazy, but after this last game, you know, where we all thought, well, at least where I thought I knew exactly what was going to happen. And so the reason that I'm not optimistic, at least going forward with this team, is because I don't know what the heck's going to happen anymore. Every time I thought I knew, I thought we're going to beat New England, didn't happen. You know, I thought the Chiefs were going to kind of roll over them and then would kind of correct the ship against Washington. They played well against the Chiefs and then lost the Washington game. So while originally I was like, all right, well, this team's cooked. They're sending out stick with us tweets. They're sending out cryptic, you don't know the whole story tweets. And the defense being so banged up, I'm like, we're cooked. There's no coming back from this. But because I think that, and I've been wrong at every single point this season, that makes me feel a little bit more optimistic that they will kind of get their act together.
Yeah, and I touched on this in the story on The Athletic this week in that, look, there is a glimmer of hope here. I mean, 0-3 is a dark place, and 0-4 is hell on earth. I mean, it's ramifications for years at that point. I mean, when you consider that it would have come to the teams that originally held the first, second, and third overall draft picks and all have new coaches, it's disastrous, no doubt. But you can still pull out of it on the basis of, look, teams that have great offenses win lots of games, always, every single year, without fail. 19 of the 21 teams that finished in the top 5 in either EPA per play or yards per drive made the playoffs. The other 2 missed by like a game. You know, that's it. Like that, if you have an elite offense, you will win games. And right now, the Bengals offense is playing at that level and has Joe Burrow, and they're healthy there. They're going to have to carry this team. You're going to have to start winning some games 38-33. But I think you can rally around the fact that maybe, I mean, the defense really can't be worse. It's almost, it's actually outside of one field goal, they cannot be worse than what they were. And the Bengals still, you know, had a chance, obviously, and were in that game. But that's it. I don't think it's that bad defensively. I mean, the first 2 weeks weren't that bad defensively. And I don't think it's where every week you're going to see it look like that. I don't think it's going to be great all of a sudden, especially not until they start getting somebody back on their defensive line, which is just a total dumpster fire right now. But the offense is good enough to carry them through that patch. It just has to now. Like, there is no margin for error. You can't lose to teams like Carolina and the Giants in a couple of weeks, and you've got to be really good in the AFC North. All of those things have to come in line, but it's not like that's out of the question because Burrow should be able to carry them through decent, you know, a long stretch, and he has to do it now. There's no way around it.
Yeah. I don't like you talking about like, oh, the defense can't get worse because, you know, in the back of my head, I watch this defense play and there's one player who's carrying a lot of that load. And if anything happens to that one player, I don't even want to put that out there, but that defensive line can still get worse if that player gets hurt.
Yeah, well, nobody wants that. He's currently fighting an illness and which he might just be sick of carrying the entire defensive line, but he's working his way through it this week. I have a surprise for you, though.
Ooh, I like surprises.
I have a surprise for you. I have a purchase that I feel like is going to come in handy this year and really for a long time into our future, and that is this. I got an actual panic button, a red panic button. See, you've got the panic button that we can actually hit when we decide that panic needs to be the reaction, which is what I love. I love any time where it's like, look, I'm out of answers. I'm just going to panic. And so, and we often talk about the panic button. I mentioned the panic button certainly and wrote about it this past week, where it is time to be doing that. But I like to have one just so people can know, hey, is this a moment? And you can just kind of, you can just panic. And
what does it say? Does it just say panic?
Different things.
Oh, okay.
Different things. You know, you get for $9.99 on Amazon, you get about 4 different panic responses. So
I didn't know if they were custom, you know, like if you need to bring that around, like sell the team or fire the coaches, bench the quarterback, you know. Yeah.
I think it's good to have one just to remind yourself and remind all of you, everyone around you, like where you're at with just general hope and being out of answers. So
now that you have it, is it time to hit it?
Yeah. No, I mean, well, yes. After Washington, it was time. I mean, panic is certainly setting in. Panic, it gives way. You don't even panic if they lose on Sunday. It's just you just fire up the mock draft machine.
I don't know that we can sell that angle yet. I mean, as a Bengals show, we kind of need to at least fabricate some interest and some optimism, even if they lose that game. At least string them along, right?
People love a dumpster fire, okay? And this will be that. And because you'll start having a lot of really interesting discussions that are, I mean, it's a dark place. There is no doubt about it. But things will get very, very interesting if they go to 0-4 in terms of where do you go from here, because it becomes hard reset time and a lot of hard discussions that you got to have. Everybody comes under the microscope of evaluation except Joe Burrow. If that goes down, can I give you my favorite story of the week here before we get into questions? My favorite story of the week is this is what happens. This was really taking me back to the good old days, covering Marvin Lewis era, where the bad seasons that would go down and how ugly they would be, and how it always turned to one, blame the media as quickly as possible, right? Like I start getting things where we're called milk toast and soft and you know, like you guys need to be asking tougher questions, and they wouldn't be this bad if you guys were getting after them and get after this front office and you yell and scream, right? And then the same thing to the head coach. The old Marvin Lewis be a effing pro speech circulated. Zach Taylor needs to be screaming and yelling and you know, peeling paint off the walls, and they need to scream and yell. And then it's like when they need to have a players only meeting, they got to start yelling at each other. The answer is just everyone needs to yell at everyone, right? Like this is what I hear the most, is that if people were more mad and yelling at each other, more things will happen, and that will turn this whole thing on. That's how you fix. Look, everybody knows when things are going wrong, when it's bad out there, you just scream and it'll fix itself, because everybody will be so tired and nervous about the screaming. I know anybody that's had an office job feels that way, right? Like if you had a bad week, you know what always makes you feel like you're going to pull yourself out of it is when your boss comes in and just starts screaming at you and everyone else. Like that's always made me perform better, always increase the efficiency level, and you feel great. And that's how you solve problems in any work environment, is make sure you're screaming and yelling and not like, you know, just trying to talk specifically about some of the issues at hand.
Yeah, I like that it's also your job to fix it, right? Like you need to be asking the questions to fix this team. It's not anybody in a management position or coaching position. It falls to the media to find the holes and kindly point them out to the coaches to correct.
They know the holes, and we've asked about all of these things. It's not like people are like, you need to talk about them now, their failures on the defensive line. Have we not been asking about the defensive line for months? Have we not been talking about it? Did we not write and talk about them letting DJ Reader go and how that happened, and the weaknesses that they had there, and the questions of the plan? Like these questions that asked, I didn't yell it. I didn't say, why have you failed everyone? We asked it in a reasonable way about what their strategies are and why they think they would work. And there's only so much you can do. Like, look, if you want to screw, why you need to go ask him, can you actually go up to Duke and tell him that he screwed up? It's like, okay, what do you think they're going to say? Yes, I'm going to go into Duke's office. I yell at him every single morning and tell them to get better. Like, they talk about this stuff every day. And whenever we ask about any of this, they'll say, well, look, we had conversations about things. We're always trying to make the team better. We always think we're making the right decision. This is not, they're not going to, I don't know what people think is accomplished. This has always blown my mind. What people think is accomplished by, yelling or at them and acting like these questions don't get asked in some capacity, that we don't get answers. That's, to me, always been the confusing, that people think that because it's not happening in these performative press conferences, that these questions aren't being asked and this information isn't being figured out.
I mean, you look at some of these media markets, though, maybe there's some merit to it, because New York has the toughest media every year, and the Jets and Giants are historically the two best teams in the NFL because the media stays on top of them.
And don't forget about the success of the Knicks.
Well, okay, that's different. The Knicks, it's just chemistry. It's just keeping the gang together. Sure. It's your superstar taking $100 million less. That's a rare story in sports. But yeah, the Jets and Giants, they rule every year. They two best teams because the press isn't soft.
That's right. That's it. That's part of it. No, look, I don't want to go down that road. I fully understand the anger that fans are feeling and the passion that they display with it. Just understand that, the idea of screaming and yelling and getting after them in press conferences is a zero accomplishment scenario. Like, nothing good comes of that you actually want. Like, what do you want? Do you want them to get mad back? Like, you want answers, and we're trying to get answers for you, not trying to scream and yell for the sake of screaming and yelling, which is obviously, what a lot of reaction wants. So that's my point. I just don't feel like that's the most conducive way to get anything done. And maybe people say, yeah, well, you're soft. Okay, well, so be it. If you came here to this podcast expecting screaming and yelling and anger and that's not anything that we've ever been. So there are so many Bengals podcasts and sports podcasts and football podcasts and really any podcast about anything where you will find lots of people screaming and yelling and screaming for firing and heads must roll and not having any kind of a rational discussion, just ripping hot takes into the air. Have yourself a day. Go find those. That's not what we're going to be here. And that's not how I like to operate. I'd rather talk about things a little more rationally. So I appreciate everybody's passion. I feel you. And I understand the frustration from a fan base that feels like this organization is failing them. We're going to work to talk about it rationally and logically here, not to scream and yell.
And not that the fans are, they're not always going to be the most rational, like I was at the game. I think there was somebody got knocked out in our section before the game started. Like somebody was throwing punches. There was somebody sitting next to me that she was shocked that she couldn't have her friend sit in an empty seat next to her. Like it was a September Reds game. I heard her scream to her friend. She's like, why is it so crowded here? I don't understand. I'm like, this is a Monday night football game. What don't you understand that it is sold out? We're fighting for our season here, and you just thought that you'd waltz in, buy tickets anywhere, and then go sit together? Not the most rational always.
No, there's a lot of that going on. All right, I have my top 3 favorite Mark Game Day tweets.
Staying with Optimism,
stay with that. I'll go with number 3. They're all defense related. So there's a thread. I think maybe all of your tweets were mostly, except for another Irv Smith reference, which I appreciate. Anytime a tight end does something crappy, they just get called Irv Smith. Number 3, you can be an elite QB, but if your defense is terrible, it's like having a suit with no back. Oh, nice pull. Pull. It's so true. It feels like something important is missing, and you just end up looking.
You make more money right now if you're just going to blame Joe Burrow, because I saw people on ESPN throwing that out there. It just makes no sense. The guy's cooking, but it's Joe Burrow.
Yeah, that's it. Number 2, jealous of Trent Brown because he only had to watch that defense for one half.
Look, he got carted out. Didn't have to see the nightmare that befell us after that.
Number one, no matter how much you want the defense to be the Chick-fil-A drive-through, it is time to accept they are a Burger King drive-through, and the manager just quit. We've all been there. We've all been there. You just want a Whopper. That's all you want. And, if there's a drink that you could possibly have with it, the fryer's down, the fountain machine's broken. They don't even have tomatoes anymore. And then they just say, look, this is what we have. We're going to need you to pull up and sit there for a half hour.
Yeah, pull up. It's just one step from like, hey, if you want fries, we got some back here. Just come help yourself. There's no laws to it. Whereas like Chick-fil-A is so orderly. Sometimes you'll get employees that'll just pull you out of that Burger King line and just start taking your Chick-fil-A order, and it's just ready. It's so efficient. And that's kind of the best analogy I could come up with in the moment of frustration was, you want it to work. You want the pieces to go together. And instead it just felt like a bunch of high schoolers with no one in charge.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's better this Sunday.
Are you ready for some questions?
Let's go. What do we got?
All right. This is from Matt.
Okay.
Dearest Paul and Mark, I'm scared. That's how we're starting our questions this week. I'm scared.
I think that's the greatest way that a first question start. Please help me. I'm scared.
He says, Burrow is healthy. We scored more than 30 points and we lost. What are the vibes? I've never been more terrified of Andy Dalton in my life. Please help me.
Yeah.
What do you got for Matt?
Suddenly just the idea of Andy Dalton ripping them apart and essentially ending their season, maybe closing their Super Bowl window is a truly frightening thought. But how full circle would it be? The Super Bowl window that opened with Andy Dalton being benched on his birthday could close with Andy Dalton putting them down only weeks away from said birthday. Man, you can almost feel it. You can almost feel that full circle moment. Understandably scared. I get it.
So what are the vibes around the team? Last week you said it was the most optimistic 0-2 team. Do you feel like the team is also starting to hit the panic button? Are they also scared of Andy Dalton?
I don't know if they're scared of Andy Dalton, but I do. The optimistic 0-2 is not a thing right now. There is a sense, there's still, it's not like everyone's walking around and mad or screaming and yelling, but there is a very much, you can sense the urgency and intensity, and Burrow sets that tone. He's always kind of got that, but when he's out and saying it and pointing it out to everybody that it's got to go now, and there's got to be this heightened sense of urgency and talking about saying stuff. And Jay and I talked about that a little bit yesterday, about the idea of him picking a spot to step in and kind of try to give a little bit extra to a young group that hasn't had to always be part of pulling this team out. They lost a lot of guys that helped them pull out of adversity in the past. It's, it's pretty focused, and there's not a lot of jokey going around. In fact, like this week, is a bit of a perfect storm, because you had what happened last week with Cam Taylor-Britt, all right, where he makes a pretty innocuous comment about a nice college offense. He mentions OC Cliff Kingsbury, and it gets taken, gotcha'd, run with all over the place. It turns into Bengals are talking shit. This is who they are, blah, blah, blah. Second week in a row because the Xavier Worthy thing. And it gets pulled into a huge thing. Zach Taylor says it's not who we are afterwards. So will players feel burnt by that? That's why I hate gotcha stuff. And anytime that it's like, okay, what are we trying to do here? Well, so they're not out. Like they don't, between being 0-3 and the problem that happened last week, I mean, you're not catching much in terms of vibes, because you're not catching much in terms of people around in the open locker room period. When the media's in there, it's been empty. And so I just think it's a bit of a perfect storm that way. And so they're, I think that they are very solely focused on all they can do is be about the work, try to get better, and just go try to win a game. And that can help turn things around. But it ain't hanging out near us. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I feel like a little bit like Matt, where I am scared of Andy Dalton because it's just because of the storylines, right? Like he played great last week and he could come back and, get some revenge against his old team. But you know what? He had a good run here too, though. So it's not like it should be all animosity. Maybe he throws us a bone for old time's sake and just throws out one of those classic Andy Dalton stinker games that we could really use right now.
Yeah, I mean, if he really cared about, I know he raises a lot of money to help the kids at Cincinnati Children's. Like, good for you with your foundation. No, you need to go Bad Andy 2.0, and that's how you really help the city of Cincinnati.
Exactly. Let us take care of the kids. You just give us the free. You make our defensive line look good. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Stressed out fan Tyler says, "Dear best podcast ever." Much better
good start. Yeah, great start.
The Bengals have an attitude problem more than like CTB talking tough and getting burned, but the entire front office, the front office, players, coaches, they thought they could get Jackson Carman to move from guard to tackle. They thought they could replace Jesse and Vaughn with Dax and Scott. They thought they could replace DJ Reader with Rankins and some rookies. I feel like even casual fans knew the D-line was going to be trouble, and the front office settled for it anyway when there's clearly more moves that could have been made. They made all these moves, or the lack of there, just so they could pay T and Jamar, and neither one got a deal done. So this one's kind of going all over the place a little bit, right? Where it's like, is it attitude is just, more about cutting corners, I guess.
Attitude, I guess, is maybe the question. Like, I don't know exactly what the question is other than they've screwed up royally, which I think is fair. When you look at some of the moves that they've made between what happened defensively last year with everybody knowing and Lou Anarumo telling them at the combine, like it would be a dark day if Jesse Bates and Von Bell left. It happened anyway. They should have listened to Lou. They didn't. The defense fell apart. Okay. Well, everyone's saying DJ Reader is more valuable than you realize. You have to make sure you're keeping, solidifying this defensive line. It's got to get better against the run and not really going that way and trying again to draft your way back into it. And that ends up being a problem. Yeah. I mean, their mistakes are all over the place. At the end of the day, though, what so much of this comes back to is, and we can talk about contract negotiations and who they have and haven't paid. This league is about your stars, and they have them. I mean, they have a big three on offense that's stars, and they have Trey Hendrickson, they have stars, and it's about your rookie contracts. And when you have two bad draft classes, when you have a couple of bad draft classes that don't turn out, that's what it looks like. This is the league. Like, if you have to have value coming from those rookie deals, or you will not have enough talent to compete with a complete team. The quarterback can cover some of that up, but eventually you just have to have draft picks that become stars and you're gaining value. I mean, the Bengals had until 2 years ago, well, until last year, three guys with essentially like $110 million extra than everybody else in the league, essentially, when you had Burrow, Higgins, and Chase on rookie contracts, when you consider their actual value. Pretty big advantage, right? Like, that's a lot of money. And so you can build a defense off of that. When you don't, you have to hit on draft picks, and your classes can't look like they have. These classes, these young guys that have failed them, the Zach Carters, the Joseph Osais, the Jordan Battle who's not playing, DJ Turner who's not playing right now, so whatever you want, like, not getting contributions from them is what kills you, because you just have to get something out of those to offset what's happening in the way you're paying. That's all. And that people can talk about everything else, and there's fine. Like, we can break down those conversations. The root of all evil is missing on draft picks. And so the rest of this year, those guys either have to swim or the franchise is going to sink.
And, talking about spending money on those big players is our next question. This is from Paul C. He says 3 of the NFL's 4 highest paid players are Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Dak Prescott. Their combined record, when he sent this at least, was 1-8. This was before. But is this an argument against spending too much money on your quarterback? Has the bargain bin approach of relying on cheap late round players on a rookie contract meant that it's tough to win a championship once your quarterback gets out of his rookie deal?
It is. I mean, when you
basically he wants to know how are they supposed to rebuild the defense with so many missed picks and you still have to pay Jamar Chase
more picks. Eventually, that's the only way to fix it, because yes, you can supplement in free agency. You're not going to find stars in free agency, not at any kind of value. Like Christian Wilkins becomes available, a player of Christian Wilkins' ilk, once every 4 or 5 years in terms of premium position that people really need in a high-end player. Well, yeah, so you have to overpay your face off to get him. It's inevitably bad business even for stars. Trying to get stars in free agency is a very hard way to go through life and to build things. So maybe one, but you're better off focusing supplemental mid-tier type of free agents. Your stars need to come from the draft. You that's where your value is. That's where you have to do it. And so, it's about picks. It's about hitting on those picks. There's no way around it. Like I wish that I could tell you, oh yeah, you just do X, Y, and Z. You can do your best, but inevitably really rebuilding anything, like they're going to have to rebuild this defensive line into the future, is going to in most ways have to come from finding some stars in the draft and developing them. And the fact that they haven't done that yet with these guys. Now, maybe Cam Taylor-Britt will be one. We were all praising him last week. I think the arrow is way up on Cam Taylor-Britt. I think Dax Hill has caught in a little bit too much slack. I think he's played more than fine through the first 3 weeks, especially at a new position. And I have zero blame on him over the double move touchdown at the end. It was incredible throw and catch. And he's playing to kind of sit on the pressure and an underneath throw there. I'm just not going to get after him for that. I know people will. I don't think Dax Hill's been all that bad, but if you need more, like you need so much more of that. You need to find real guys in the draft. That's the only way when you're paying a quarterback to do it. And that's, you look at the history. I mean, let's look at the teams that have been there. Okay. Mahomes and Brady have had long runs. Well, Mahomes is taking less money than most all quarterbacks as his deal looks better and better. Brady famously took less money than most quarterbacks and was able to sustain. The rest is a lot of rookie deals, right? Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom. Russell Wilson on a rookie deal. Jalen Hurts, right? Rookie deal. The first Philadelphia Super Bowl. Carson Wentz, rookie deal. You're talking about the Rams had Jared Goff on a rookie deal. San Francisco has had a bunch of, they had the Garoppolo contract, but they've had, now they have Brock Purdy, right? And they're getting him on the rookie deal. You're seeing so much of this. There are examples certainly of teams that can break through, but it is so much harder. You have to own your draft classes and in order to offset it. And when you don't, you're just not good enough.
Yeah, and you kind of look at some of the guys that have been their stars on the defensive line that weren't draft picks. I mean, you got kind of lucky with those free agent signings of Hendrickson and DJ Reader, who both kind of outplayed what they were brought here for. And the BJ Hill trade, like those are lucky moves. Those can't be the formula going forward. Hopefully, you see guys like Jenkins and Miles Murphy, once they start to get more playing time and get healthier, maybe those guys can turn into some key players. You kind of desperately need that to happen and happen soon. Because this is where, our fan base is at. This next question is from Jordan. He says that since the Bengals defense is objectively terrible and teams now know the easiest way to beat them is just to control the clock and burn time with long drives, would it be crazy for the Bengals to let the opponents start their drives on the Bengals 35 and just hope the red zone D can hold them to field goals and then give our offense enough time to score as many points as possible?
I like this outside the box thinking, right? Let's try to solve a new problem. I like this. Okay, now look, I covered arena football for a couple of years. Excuse me. I covered minor league arena football for a couple of years because the beginning of my career was really a strong start. But in arena football, look, you're basically just onside kicking every time. And if your defense is going to be so bad they can't stop anybody, well, then you might as well just try to stop them through an onside kick, right? To get a possession, force a turnover. Just give them the short field, get right into your red zone D, force some field goals, and maybe the one time out of 6, right? Hey, look, they had 6 possessions. You think the Bengals could go 1 for 6 on onside kicks?
Yeah,
yes,
that's fun to think about. Yeah,
I think they could. You know what? And they keep 2 kickers on the roster. One who is the greatest onside kick person on this earth, right? Find him. There's got to be. Put out an all call right now. If you're listening to Dey Light and you think you're great at weird onside kicking, go down to Paycor Stadium. Let them know. Tell them this theory, right? And I think that's what you do. You invest in onside kickers is what you do rather than trying to invest in very expensive defensive linemen. Find a good onside kick guy for the league minimum and have him come in and just do that every day. And that'll get you at least one possession where you get a stop and give the ball to your offense. Boom, there you go. Now you win 38-33 instead of losing 38-33.
Yeah, or you hope the opposing team drops a ball on 3rd down or something let's just hope for some mistakes or something there. And, this is the next evolution for this defense. Forget the draft picks. We just need gimmicks. We need to just you're a big flag guy. We just need to raise the white flag on defense and then just go from there. Let them kick some field goals. I think this next Mike has kind of figured out what might have started all the Bengals issues here.
Okay.
He says he can't believe that nobody mentioned the Bengals winless streak starts with Dan Hurley as the ruler of the jungle in the season opener. Meanwhile, Xavier Sean Miller and his Steelers are 3-0. So he thinks the Bengals should make peace with Sean, get him as the ruler of the jungle for the game against the Ravens, who everyone in the North hates anyway. How do you feel about that for changing up some vibes?
Yeah, Dan Hurley put them in the wrong direction. That's what you get for bringing in somebody from outside of the Cincinnati area, I guess. I don't know. Sure, do it. Bring Sean Miller out. I don't know. I don't have any answers in terms of. I like the idea that this was all Dan Hurley's fault, though. I mean, sure, Dan Hurley is a friend of the program, though, so I don't really like people besmirching.
Yeah, I don't. If you're gonna even look at that too, let's really go back to last season, which is sort of a lost season because of the injury, right? What changed there? Maybe there was a big, significant change, and that is when they kicked Gold Star out of the stadium. They made the move to Skyline. Could it be the Skyline curse? Is that something we need to entertain, or is this city not ready to have that conversation?
I don't think they're ready. I think we've all felt like we've had the Skyline curse before. I think everybody's had that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's how this season feels right now is what happens at that moment. All right.
Are you ready for an ambush question?
Yeah, ambush. Let's go. What do we got?
This one's from Jim. He says, with all due respect to legendary Bengals fan Wildman Walker, who famously lived on a billboard until the Bengals won a game in 1991, which current local Cincinnati media member or superfan should live on a billboard until the 2024 Bengals crack the win column? He says it's got to be Mo, right? Think of the publicity for the pod. Keep being awesome. From Jim.
Oh, thank you, Jim. That's a great one. Who do you think? Do you have a
I don't think it's Mo. Mo's
he's
a family man. He's got a young kid. You can't put him on a billboard. Also, you don't know how long he's going to be up there. I think if you do it, it's got to be, and I'll stay with radio because, it's easier to lose a radio guy up there for a while. It's not going to really disrupt too much. You put Bill Cunningham up there, you put Willie up there because let's be honest, he's getting up there in years. You don't know how much more Willie we've got left in this city. And, you don't want him to expire on that billboard up there. You got to save the old guy, get him down from there. And if it was somebody young like Mo, he could just hold out forever.
Yeah, no, you're right. I love the idea of Willie being up there. Let me think. I think I'd probably go the celebrity route here, though. And so I think, what if we put Fiona the Hippo up there? Right? Like, what if we I like get the crane out, Lift Fiona up. I'll give her, I guess she's going to need a tank probably. Like, I don't know if Fiona and Fritz, but I think you separate her from her family. Okay. And she goes up there. And look, if that's the end of Fiona, that's the end of Fiona. That's the way it's got to go.
I mean, that's a little dire, but I do like where your head's at, right? Of like, here's one of our biggest figures in the city. She is stuck up here until this team gets its act together. Forget yelling at coaches. No one's going to call you soft after this either.
If Fiona gets free, well, what if Fiona gets free? That's the problem, because now you have a hippo whose main instinct is to be one of the biggest killing machines on our earth, is now wandering around. Like, that's the stuff that's straight out of Ghostbusters, where Stay Puft Marshmallow Man ends up being your demise. It's like Fiona the hippo ends up being the one to like eat a bunch of Cincinnatians. That's not good.
Yeah, you know what?
Anybody.
You were going to the dark place with this. No one's going to call Paul Dehner Jr. soft anymore after he suggests putting the sweet Fiona up on a billboard until the Bengals can win, and then also turning her into a killer hippo after she gets
a killer
loose.
Hippo. Hippos are killers. It's nothing against Fiona.
She's a sweet princess that everyone comes to pay homage to at the zoo. Yeah, no one's gonna think you're soft now. They're offering up Fiona as the sacrificial lamb to get this season on track.
Big Hippo has gotten their grips on you, Mark. You don't believe their lies.
I am way too soft as a zoo apologist, even though I've gone on the record.
The zoo.
I've gone on the record on this show saying you don't need a season pass to the zoo. You can just waltz right in there. So
they don't barely check it.
But yeah, I still don't want Fiona to have to get sacrificed.
No,
but
not talking about sacrifice, just hanging out there until they get a win. So
it does make a statement.
I guess that's where I'm going.
If they do get a win, it's got to be soon so we can get Fiona down there. Maybe in Carolina, that would be probably the most opportune time to free Fiona. What is the road trip preview looking like from your standpoint?
All right, let's go. Charlotte. I think back when the schedule came out, I circled this one as, hey, if you want to go, this is a great one. Great time of year for Charlotte, which is an awesome city. Great food city, great beer city, great to go early and pop out to, Asheville, how great Asheville is. Mark, you've done a bunch of shows down there. Awesome town. I'm a big Asheville fan. If you want to go up into the mountains for a little bit, do that too. Awesome hiking, you name it. Great golf in Charlotte, by the way, if you're a golfer. I know our good friend of the program, Richard Skinner, and some of his friends are driving and stopping and doing some golfing along the way, which there's tons of good golf down there if you wanted to do that. Barbecue, get you some barbecue. Go to Midwood, go to Max Speed Shop, or a couple of the high-end local spots that you'd want to check out. Hat tip to friend of the program, Ed, sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name, Sutalon, who lives in Charlotte and is a follower and sent some of those. I've been down there before, and I've been to Midwood. I've been to Max. They're great. I've also been to Old Macklemore. I think it's Old Macklemore Brewery, which makes me think that Macklemore's there, who I love Macklemore as an artist, but maybe it's not Macklemore. Maybe I wrote that wrong, but it's Old something Brewery with an M. It's very German. Like, it's got sort of, it's got your Hofbrauhaus vibes, but better and local and all that stuff down there. Great beer. So those are some of my recommendations in terms of Charlotte. The stadium, if you're going to the game, is great. Downtown, easy access. Really big fan of Charlotte. Really big fan of that entire operation. And it'll be even better whenever they renovate their stadium, which they're in the process of doing. Those of you that listened to our conversation with Joe Person from yesterday heard a little bit on the background of what's going on there, which is very similar to what they're hoping to do in Cincinnati. So to be thinking about that when you're down there and enjoying the stadium. But enjoy Charlotte if you're going. Awesome trip. Awesome town.
It also, I know you don't like to report on this, but it doesn't seem like one of those opposing stadiums where you're going to get in a fist fight either. Like the Panthers fans don't seem like they're full of venom and anger the way that, you might see in some of those AFC North opposing stadiums. So it makes it a little bit more fun to go to.
Well, it's partially because of the makeup of the city. It's very much transplants, right?
Yeah.
Charlotte's a big transplant city, so you don't get that deep-rooted, invested anger that comes from those of us up here in the Midwest. And so, yeah. And also the lack of relevancy makes them pretty harmless as well. So yeah, you're a good place to go. I know a lot of people are making the trip. I'm sure we'll see you out there on the town. If you see me, of course, say hello. Always love seeing you out there. And also get your Growler bets in. Growler bet this week. Make sure you send those to the Growler podcast at gmail.com, or you can drop them in on Twitter, hashtag Bengals Growler bet, and we will check them out. No winner last week. Close. So many. Again, so close, but nobody won. This week's question is Andy Dalton passer rating. Andy Dalton passer rating. You just got to get me the number. So if, for example, 123.9 last week, the correct answer to that would be 123. I don't need the decimal point. Not rounding up. So you just send me Andy Dalton passer rating prediction for this weekend by kickoff. And if you win, you will have a bar bill on us at Nation Kitchen and Bar, home of all of our live shows this year. So you can come on down to the next live show and collect that.
Yeah, we always have good vibes down there. But you know what?
Great.
We have gone, like 2 weeks now without a winner? 3 weeks? I mean, it's not been great.
Yeah. And this is, passer rating is, I think, a good one because you know where it typically is going to end up, but it's still hard enough to hit it right on the nose. But I think we probably, assuming you get an average performance from Andy Dalton, which I believe average Andy Dalton passer rating in his career is I think he's 88.7. I heard this yesterday. So there's a wide range, I guess, but there's plenty of opportunity for somebody to give us a winner. We need one.
Yes, it's time to turn that around too.
What do you
more W's?
You're out at Skankfest in Vegas right now, playing that huge show. Good luck to you. Break a leg on those shows this weekend. Where is that? What venue is hosting that?
It's at Notoriety Live, which has 6 different showrooms inside. So there's big theaters, small theaters. It's a really cool festival. There's something like 70 or 100 of the top comedians from around the country. It's pretty awesome. Tickets are not cheap. They're $500 a day or something like that. So it is a steep ticket. So you got to be on top of your game out there. But it's going to be a fun one. Next big local show is October 19th, though, at Dead Low Brewing for all you Cincinnati people. That's on the east side. Great room there. So those tickets are on sale now, so you can get those as well.
All right. Looking forward to that.
It is. I did have because I did the all ages show. I talked about that last week.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've probably had this at times, right? Where have you ever had to sign an autograph before from, your podcast duties or writing?
Yeah. And I just apologized. I don't know why they would want me to bring down the value of something that you want me to sign. But yes, I have.
Do you sign a message or just your name?
Just my name.
Okay. So
other than I'm sorry, Paul, right? That's about it.
My apologies.
Yeah.
Especially with everything you've done for the flag community, I think you might start to have to sign more flags and stuff. So you might have to come up with a good
flag message. You're right. I could use that. Yeah, I would sign a flag with authority.
In comedy clubs, I always kind of have a standard thing. I just write, "You are my favorite audience member," and then sign. Yeah. So whether it's CDs, posters, because it's fun to do 3 of those in a row, and they're like, "Hey, you just wrote that on that person's," whatever. And it's the same thing. After they see you in a show, they're like, "Oh, this person's going to be famous," or maybe he'll be famous someday. And you're always like, you don't. Autographs are overrated. Period. It still feels weird to sign them, but I don't even think about it anymore. It's always the same for everybody. You are my favorite audience member. You are my favorite audience member. I do wish that I would think about it more, because I was at that all ages show in the back of the room, and some 7-year-old girl came up to me and was like, "Can I get your autograph?" And I just sent her back to her parents with a little note that said, "You are my favorite audience member," and just signed it on it. That's not a great feeling either. Oh, that's just creepy now, sending her back with that autograph.
I'm okay with it. Did the show go well? Did you feel like it was?
Yes.
What the setup is essentially, it's almost 4 kids. Is that kind of the all ages?
No, not exactly. It's just that you can bring your kids, right? Okay. If your kid's cool, you can bring them. And the other comic was from the Nate Bargatze podcast, so he's a clean comic and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's a good way to hang out with your 12-year-old, 10-year-old. Where they can't go to a normal comedy show at 8 p.m. because it's 21 and up or 18 and up, whatever. So they did a Sunday afternoon show, and it was fun. My kids came, they got to see me on stage. And then, cool. The 4-year-old, she couldn't hang. So I had to take her to the green room afterwards so she could play games on my phone and not disrupt the rest of the show. But the older 2, they dug it. And that's not something they don't get to see me work much. Obviously, I'm not bringing them to Skankfest, Las Vegas. It's not where you're bringing your daughters.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
don't do
that was a weird moment to have to. It was cool because my kids were with me, and this other person came up and wanted my autographs, and my kids were like, "Wow, he must be important." But it was just sort of like creepy to like send her back to her parents with, "You were my favorite."
Yeah. So my, my wife, she works in the prosecutor's office. And so there's lots of like, campaigning that people, all these judges and so many people there have to run for office, right? Just so you end up being asked to help out and like walk in parades and stuff like that. And so we'll do it. We'll dress our kids up cute and they'll go give out candy or whatever. And you know how you do these weird parades. Like we love the Norwood Day parade. That's our favorite. It's the best one. It's kind of a little unhinged, which is the best part. But anyway, so the point is everybody's got like a bucket of candy or something. And I always feel like it's weird that they ask you basically to just go throw piles of candy at children. Like just throw it at them. And if it goes into the gutter, it goes into the gutter. So I always try to be a little more gentle. So when I go over, I always like, and there's the like two aggressive kids in the front that will scoop up all the candy. And then the quiet kids in the back don't get any. So I would point out like, no, you in the back, you come get the candy. Right. And I always am like, okay, I recognize how this looks now as I point out, no, I like the quiet ones.
I've got my eye on you.
Yeah. Right. I'm like,
here's some candy for you, little boy.
I'm trying to help the introverts and the less enthusiastic out there from these bullies that are taking all of the candy. I'm not a creeper. I promise you. And so I always find myself in a very similar state when asked to walk in some of these parades. So I've kind of just given up where I just give my bucket to the girls and let them do it. And I just wave a flag and dance a little bit.
You know what you should consider, right? Is having some like filter candy, right? Throw a couple Tootsie Rolls to distract the big aggressive kids. And as they fight over the Tootsie Rolls in the gutter, that's when you throw the good stuff to the kids behind them. Yeah. You just got to have like a two-tiered approach to it, some fake candy, throw out, some of those flavor Tootsie Rolls, even the true trash that you can just get for free. And then you throw out like the Skittles and M&Ms and stuff to the kids in the back.
I just try to be gentle, that's just me as a person, that's all. And sometimes that gets misconstrued. That's
yeah. And you know what, if that's your role, is just to be the flag guy in the parade,
that's
you
what
can own that.
I was born to do it. Right. Happy to do it. Absolutely no problem. All right. Dad Lifetime. What do you got?
This is a tough one because I am, on this big trip. It's like a fun weekend, some of the biggest shows of the year. And we have a situation at home that's brewing where I am now instead going to be spending some time working on a eulogy for a fish. Our daughter, our oldest, it's the first pet that we had in the household. She kept her fish alive. I think it's 4 years, which is a very long time for a betta fish. Mm-hmm. And she's got like such a strong attachment. She reads bedtime stories to it every night. It's probably 45 minutes of like reading. She would set up a different scene in front of the fish tank every single day. So the fish would have something new to look at every single day. And so that's tough because like the fish, right as I was getting ready to leave, seemed to be on its last legs. We thought that she had died, and then she kind of swam a little bit more. But so it's a tough one to miss. It's not quite like missing the birthday. You can kind of celebrate that at different times. But not being there for the end of the fish and then having to work on my fish eulogy is kind of dampering my spirits today.
How do you approach a fish? What's your attack going to be here? Just going to talk about all its best attributes, the good times, like where are you gonna go with it?
The fish got to, it's seen a lot. It got to see two different houses, got to see us really grow up from, a family that didn't have a podcast studio in the basement to one that does have a podcast studio in the basement. So a lot of big changes this fish has seen. And then you try and focus it on the kid, right? Like, oh, wow, look at the impact the fish has made on the child and make her feel good. And then, I've got to look up the logistics about how to bury a fish in your backyard so it doesn't get dug up by backyard predators. So that's the fun stuff we've got going on.
Yeah.
Speaking of optimism.
I was going to say, speaking of backyard predators, this was a great episode of The Cosby Show back in the day when they had to have the fish eulogy where they flushed it down the toilet was what they did with it. But they all stood around, they all dressed up in their, ties and dresses and they all gathered around the toilet in the bathroom and then whoosh, did the flush at the end as the big, maybe that should be your move.
Yeah, I think that would probably cause her to freak out pretty substantially, but I do like that you managed to work that into this podcast. Of speaking of predators, the Cosby Show.
Yeah, I thought it was smooth.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, biggest predator out there.
It's on that note, my dad life is on birthday parties because it's a birthday party weekend for us with my 5-year-old.
So what are you doing for the party? Like, is it a big friend party, family?
It's a friend party. So it's the first friend party, right? Like
that's a big one.
When you're 5, that's the beginning of, okay, you can have your first big friend party now at this point. And we've had obviously parties in the past, but not where it's like, okay, invite everybody. Cause now you're in kindergarten, whatever, you got all these. So this is the first time for that. So it's, it's at one of these like indoor play places, which is great. It's totally fine. But I do love like how at this age, it's just become, hey, other parents, I'm going to babysit your kids for a couple of hours and give you some freedom. So here's where you need to drop them off. You're welcome. And just knowing that that's like how in the beginning it was always like, oh, everybody comes, everybody gathers around, hangs out with their kids. Happy birthday. We're going to sing now. And then by the time you reach like 5, 6, 7, as it goes older, it's like, all right, yeah, I think that's the place. Good luck getting across the main street to get in there. I'll be back some point later to come pick you up. And then that's just it. It's just freedom, and they go get a workout in or do whatever errands they've been trying to run. It's just the drop off and get the heck out of there is what happens as you start to get older, and we start doing these over and over and over again. But hey, every once in a while, it's your turn to host the babysitting, and so we'll be doing that. The timing's also very important, though. Like, you got to do it. You can't put it in a bad time.
Yeah,
you don't want to. It's really what kills you is a misunderstanding. I always feel like weekend, like late morning, when everyone just needs a breath anyway. Like, just take care of lunch, give us a break in the middle of our day, and don't get in the way of bedtime or dinner or where other plans usually live. Nice little weekend lunchtime is a great time to put a kid's birthday party. Get them in and out. 2 hours max.
Yeah.
And then get them out of there.
That's important to have the max time. You need the beginning and the end, even if it's 3, whatever. Anything more than that is just crazy lunacy. Any open-ended birthdays,
the worst.
That's lunacy too.
Lunacy.
And you're right.
The exit strategy is the most important part because they have been shoved full of cookies and for some reason, like Coca-Cola and 7-Up probably combined together and drank out of a 2-liter. There's just no rules during these birthday parties. Cake, you name it. And then it's like, okay, now we have to emotionally ruin them by pulling them away from their friends. If they think that one of their friends is still in this party and they are not, because it's, leave whatever you want. Well, no, if Susie's staying and Joanne isn't, then there's going to be a major meltdown and problem. So it has to be, this ends at 2:03 and everyone will leave at exactly that time at the same time. We have to do this together, people. This is a group effort. All right. The end time is more important than the start time by a long shot.
Yeah. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. You just put them out on the lawn, come claim your kids. And that's that, right?
That's actually what we need. We could use like a good, college bar bouncer that is there just to be like, look, you just gotta go. Okay, Let's finish it up. Put your Sprite down and let's get you out the door. Okay,
no more pixie sticks. Get out of here.
Yeah,
you've had enough.
That's it. Absolutely, gotta have it. So that's this weekend. I'm excited about that. We have that going on tomorrow afternoon, and then I fly to Charlotte, and I will be sad to miss the actual birthday, but we'll have plenty of celebrating going on tonight and tomorrow to get it done. So,
yeah, and hopefully bring some good birthday vibes to Carolina.
There you go. That's all you need. Happy birthday, Rosie. Hope you have a good one. And I hope everybody has a good week. Hey, no need to scream and yell. But if you need to, don't forget the panic button. The panic button is always here for you.
And we're here at the Growler podcast at gmail.com. So you can just type out your screams and your rants and, we'll get to them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And Jay and I will talk to you on the walkout presented by Cincy Shirts on Sunday night. Have a good one.